Are you ready?
SunDAVE, sit down.
Yeah, it's time for SunDAVE to sit down.
SunDAVE, sit down.
Oh, yeah, it's time for SunDAVE Sit Down Book Club Edition.
Good evening, everybody and friends. Welcome, Grandmaster B, Bryce, and Daryl.
Read your comics because that's what we're here for. I got a
doing.
new microphone.
Oh,
I
sounds
like
good.
it.
Yeah. There's a reason for that. Tyler is in the house.
Hi, Tyler. The reason for that is it's live. The new podcast is live. Some of you know, maybe the both of you remember, I talked about it. Me and my buddy Manu, 9.9 Newsstand,
yeah.
secretly recorded 6 episodes so far. And the title of the podcast is called It Came from the Newsstand. It's
Witty. It's witty.
Yes, it's witty. I'm excited for everybody to hear it. It is actually on Spotify. The first episode is on Spotify right now. Secretly did that right before we went live. It has to do obviously with comics and collectibles and cards, but it we dive into like the things that we deal with as sellers, and then we both collectively have an open space to lose our shit on certain things. We don't name names, but we do talk about things. And if you're one of those people that's like, I wonder if Dave's going to talk about me because I gave him a hard time with something,
I probably do.
So the two of you are excluded from that. Bryce,
How long are the episodes? Because I ain't got time to sit and listen to you talk for 3 hours.
well, yes, you do. You are on so many goddamn planes on a weekly basis.
No, that's true. That's true. I do have the time. I was just trying.
The first episode was like an hour and change. The second one was a long one. It was like an hour and 40 minutes. But now we're going to try and cull them to under an hour. But then again, yesterday we recorded 3 hours on 2 episodes. So, but it's a lot of fun. It gets, I mean, for me, it's a little bit more of what you guys are used to hearing when I'm live, just no filter. But it gives me the time to kind of like tell stories and not be distracted by claim sale type things or whatever it is. But I'm really excited. I'm telling everybody tonight. I'm gonna let a couple select friends know, but we're not gonna really publish anything on Instagram for probably another week. So you are all our guinea pigs. But there's a lot of fun stuff that we talk about. We talked about Spider-Verse spoilers. Obviously we're a month after the fact. And Manu, I love talking to him. Our conversations are kind of epic.
What's the name of the show?
It came from the newsstand.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what?
You
There's pieces of it that like, so you guys, well, Daryl, you're Tennessee, and then Bryce, you grew up in LA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you guys, I don't know about Tennessee, but I know the West Coast, the term stationery store doesn't really exist. And it's like this, it's kind of a convenience store, but back in Long Island, I described in very much detail of what a stationery store was like, where you could buy cards and comics and little candy and lottery and cigarettes, but also like toilet paper and a pharmacy. And Manu didn't know about this because it's not a West Coast thing. So a lot of that's going to be involved, like just talking about like audible nostalgia.
like a gas station, but like with snacks and stuff.
But the reason why it's called a stationery store is because when you like picture in your head the current use of like, let's say a Walgreens or a supermarket that has a Hallmark aisle, the stationery stores are built around the idea of it's all greeting cards, but then there's and then there's a newsstand with racks of magazines, and then the dude behind the counter selling cigarettes and lottery tickets, and then the porn would be on like the top rack with like a black thing going across it so you couldn't see, but it
just
was
titles.
Yeah, and it was like the alternative to if you didn't have a comic book store. Long Island had one per town, maybe even more, but it was another place to go get comics and cards, and it was one of the very few places that you could buy comics and like sports cards and non-sport cards without having to go to like specifically a comic book or baseball card store. So Tyler, hold on one sec. I wanted to wait until we were live to bring him in. There he is.
Tyler gifted this to me today, and Wolverine's gonna be with us. All right, so we're talking. Oh,
Did he draw that?
no, I think he just
Like
found
a
it on the
Wolverine
internet.
troll.
Yeah. So today we're talking about Days of Future Past or Days of Future Past. You all know Daryl. Read your comics. Please check out his YouTube. I'm going to put it in the description below after we're done. But just go on YouTube and type in "Read Your Comics."
Read your comics. Should show up.
Yeah, and Bryce, our friend Bryce, he has done all of the theme songs for my content, and you can find "Done Messed Up" on Spotify, along with "It Came from the Newsstand." So tonight, when you're done watching and listening to this, go on Spotify, type in "Done Messed Up," listen to "Under the Covers" or "Quit Hogging the Covers," and then go listen to "It Came from the Newsstand" episode 1. And then subscribe to Read Your Comics. All right, guys, show's over.
Yeah.
All right. You guys
Hey, on the podcast, can we expect to hear some singing? Do you break out into random?
I did kind of promise that I wasn't going to do it, and then after I promised that, I immediately did it. So, yes, you'll hear it every once in a while. So yeah,
that's the best, man. And you carry a tune pretty well. I was actually pretty impressed.
Thank you. I don't know what to say besides thank you. And and if you threw a party and invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the kind of touch would say thank you for being a friend. There we go. Daryl, I'm sorry that we roped you into this, but I'm not sorry at all.
I know the lyrics to that. I should have just joined in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's better when there's like a chorus going on, especially in that chorus.
Yeah. And I like to change lyrics a lot. And thank you for reading X-Men. Tyler, you're most welcome to. All right. So Days of Future Past, you guys, none of us are strangers to the X-Men or this book or this two-part storyline. Do you individually, either of you, remember the first time you read this?
Vaguely, I remember I read it sometime in the mid-90s, whenever that trade paperback came out, that we talked about in the pre-show. That's probably when I first, and I already knew about it because like so much of the story is like sticks around and gets rehashed in later X-Men issues. It's like, so I already knew so much, but it was when that trade paperback came out that I was like, oh, I could finally get to like actually read this. And so yeah, I would say I remember it pretty clearly, and I've read it several times since then.
Yeah. What about you, Bryce?
I actually didn't read it until after the movie. And so that's kind of, I hadn't collected those issues yet. I kind of worked my way backwards from the Jim Lee time, because that was more when I started really getting into the X-Men, and then kind of working my way back to the older stuff. And so once the movie came out, then I was like, okay, I got to check this out.
Yeah, I definitely read it when I was younger. I didn't, just like Daryl said, I didn't collect these issues. I was fucking, less than a year old when these came out. And I am I wrong? Did they do the storyline in the animated series?
Yeah, sort of,
right?
Except it was like Bishop came back.
Oh,
they used Bishop as like, instead of having like the Kitty Pryde like mind swap, like Bishop came back in time, and they kind of touched on like the beats of like, there was like a politician that needed to be saved, or it was going to start the Sentinel stuff. So they used Bishop as like their MacGuffin to make it work.
Because he was the hot character when we were of the age of that coming out. That must have been my first exposure to it. But I too also had that trade paperback at some point, and I read it, but it was a huge gap. And just like Bryce, I think before the movie came out, I reread it to kind of familiarize myself with the story, because it had been 10 years. And then I read it after, and I've read it probably 4 times since the movie came out, just because it's an easy read. It's a fun read. We're going to dive into it in just a moment. Constantine, what's up, my friend? And Andrew said, as amazing as the storyline was, it was too short, which I agree with. Just
Mhm.
wish they had more. The XE animated series and Wolverine movie added some nice pieces, though. Yeah, and that's the thing when that there were pieces been added and there were pieces been added in the comic, but then we're just gonna look at the John Byrne, Chris Claremont, the original two-parter, the most iconic X-Men cover. I think these two are probably two of the, but I think this is the most iconic X-Men cover because you've seen this. This image is not just gets homaged, but it gets put to so many different products and things that we're familiar with. And it's so cool. I mean, Byrne really, soars on this. And I was talking to Bryce before you joined, Daryl, and I was saying, like, Claremont's writing is too wordy for me because it's too wordy unnecessarily. He can cut half the dialogue and the sentiment on a lot of this does not get lost. But and some people disagree with me, and that's fine. That's what's beautiful about discussion. But this cover, the way that Wolverine looks, never seen anything like this before. Byrne draws. Well, I think Byrne is a very underrated champion of Wolverine art.
Oh no, he made Wolverine the character.
Yeah.
Before Byrne, Cockrum didn't really like Wolverine and was working him out of the book. And Claremont was ready to ditch him. And it was Byrne that came on and was like, no, I want this Canadian guy. I want to do something with him.
Yeah.
And Byrne's the one that made Wolverine. He kind of told Chris he wanted to he's like, I want to do more with this character. So Chris did more with the character. And
oh, sorry.
Well, I was gonna say when you get as you start flipping through it, there was one I forget if it's in the first issue or the second, but it looks almost McFarlane esque. When Wolverine's kind of bent down a little bit, and I was like that obviously inspired Wolverine's later looks from artists like McFarlane and that because but the art in this is amazing.
Well, you could see it in the way that he draws Wolverine's face, both of their faces. Like he does a really good job at making sure that we know that Kitty Pryde's older because we never knew that she was going to get older at this point because she was still a kid and she is probably for 15 years. But my first exposure to Byrne was his first couple of Wolverine covers that he did. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. But the older I got, the more I appreciated it. But you guys just talked about it, but you don't hear generally people talking about how much Byrne means to Wolverine. At least I don't hear it. I hear people talk about Jim Lee and these other artists that we love. Here's something that didn't age well. OJ Simpson ad.
Why?
It's really funny. I was looking at a fucking.
I wonder if those boots fit.
Yes, if they don't, well, we gotta acquit them.
If the boots don't fit, you must acquit.
I was going through a bunch of books to put in my dollar box for the con last week, and one of them was a Fat Albert book, and I opened it up to the first page, and Bill Cosby actually had the same hairstyle as OJ in that time period. And I was like, oh no, that's Bill Cosby. And then he was talking about the legal system. I'm like, oh, this didn't age well either. All right. So we get to the first page and that first page trade dress thing that's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's absolutely stunning.
And he did that a few times and Byrne did in his run. And I guess he pulls that from like Will Eisner. The one kind of known for doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. With the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Byrne got Wolverine's size and scale right. Well, he did. If you look at those, especially some of those issues of Alpha Flight that he's in, and these X-Men issues, you can really see it. Big B, what's going on, my friend? All right, so we get the first page, and it sets this. It already starts to set the story. And this came out of left field, right? There was no like last page prelude to it in X-Men 140. Okay, so it's the 21st century. It's 2013, and we get, New York City is basically like, it's like the Warriors out there or something like that, which is also, great movie. And we get this guy with a mohawk and Kitty's taking a medipack somewhere and she gets trapped and she doesn't have, it's funny because they don't talk about it until like, I think it's a little bit later about the dampener. Oh no,
It's right here, the inhibitor collar. She can't use her powers when she kicks the dude in the nuts and or the stomach. And then Wolverine comes out of nowhere looking just awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
No
Well,
costume, just the
speaking of
jacket.
To the comment a second ago about his size, right? I mean, the thug calls him little man or something like that on that. You know, what are you going to do, little guy, or whatever? And he's like, all right, we're going to throw down old school.
Yeah. And although he can't pop his claws, doesn't matter. His fists are adamantium.
Yeah. So what year did this come out?
1980.
1980.
January. Oh, well, okay. So it's January 81, but the cover is.
So that would have been like really like November 1980.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what year did Terminator come out? The first
80.
a little later.
83.
Okay,
maybe?
so this predates Terminator by
Yeah,
a few years. Okay.
84.
I think it was
Terminator came out in
84.
Yeah. But, you know, obviously with the same breath that we're saying it was made in 83. So maybe, you know, someone was privy, you know, well, it doesn't matter. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I'm sure was inspired by this, and Terminator probably makes sense. And Bryce, it's funny because Bryce mentioned it when we were talking beforehand. But yeah, so we got a post-apocalyptic escape from New York. The Warriors, you know, New York City looking like what those movies depict it as. And yeah, Wolverine comes out and beats the shit out of these guys.
Can I comment real quick? This is 2013 because I kept talking about that, you know.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, you know, if it was, you know, real, and it's always funny to think of in the 80s what they used to think of what the future was going to be like, you know, in 2012 or 20, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And yeah, it's crazy to me because it would jump when it jumps back and forth to 2013 or whatever, and I just I shook my head, you know.
The only movie that ever successfully predicted it was Idiocracy.
Yeah, it's quickly moving that direction.
Yeah. So she gets to the internment camps. I guess that's the one thing you'll call them. And obviously, you know, the X-Men have always been kind of a symbol of all of the things, you know, prejudice and racism and you know, and all those things. So the similarities to the Holocaust are always going to be there, you know, especially with Magneto's origin. And
Kitty here.
Yeah, and Kitty, that's right. I always forget that Kitty's Jewish.
Yeah.
That's right. Bad Jew. And so it talks about how the origins of what happened, that, you know, mutants were so it's H for baseline of human, clean of mutant genes, allowed to breed, and then A for anomalous human, a normal person possessing mutant genetic potential, forbidden to breed, and then M is for mutant. And they basically, she talks about how millions have died, and you know, you see all the graves of all the different superheroes, and I didn't know. I guess Ben Grimm, you know, is just dead because he's a superhero. He's not a mutant, but you know.
Well, I'm sure they all tried to put up some resistance at some point, and
well, they mentioned that too. In it, she says that they, you know, were killing people that had powers, not necessarily mutants.
Yeah,
so, yeah. But that perspective panel on the bottom was one of my favorite in there. It's just the way that's drawn. See everything and reading the names and.
But look how close those graves are together. Like there's like not really room. Like how the space between the first row and the second row behind it is just essentially right up on it. Well, no, on that panel they're far apart, but that one down there, they're like right up on top of each other almost.
Yeah. Well,
those are the ones that were like toasted. They're all cremated. So
well, that's the thing. I'm almost guaranteeing you this is representing of a mass grave instead of singular graves.
Yeah. But it's like, why put their? I mean, their names are there for one reason, just so you can be like, oh, all these people are dead, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can't be like, where are the Avengers and all this?
Right. They're all dead.
They're all dead. Like,
Terminator's future was set in 2029, so we still have a few years left. Grim, but true. So Kitty's walking through the graves, and we see that Aurora and Peter Colossus are still alive. And then I love how like you just get a view of the wheelchair,
And you're like, wait, Magneto, because she, she says Magneto's in a wheelchair. Oh, how the tables have turned. How the tables have turned. They're all buried vertically. Yeah, I think Bryce is right. They're all toast, and it's just an ash grave. Oh, well, John, thanks for letting us know you're here and that you're leaving, but you might be back. You tease. And thank you to John also for helping me with SummerCon last week. And if you haven't watched the episode, I did a recap episode this morning, so watch it. So much content. So yeah, this is where, like, I love the story, but there's just so much to read here. It detracts from the art a little bit in my eyes. Like, I want more art and less text, because you're talking about some of these characters that aren't even going to be here halfway through this issue. We already know who they are.
Well, you're still establishing this whole new world and like
Sure.
where everybody is and their mindsets and their relationships. And this was probably the first of a Kitty Colossus relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall. Now, she had kind of been like thirsting after him a little bit.
Yeah.
And issues leading, but she was a kid. Like, she was like 13 or 14, I think, when she first appeared. But so this was like their first little, like, oh, they're going to be together,
Mm-hmm. But it does jump into the plot pretty quickly, which I do appreciate. Like, this could have been a 6-issue series, 6-issue storyline where they don't even put her in the future until the end of the first issue, but we get it pretty quickly in here. I do love that panel. Absolutely love that panel.
Yeah.
Clashes with the rest of what's going on. But yeah, we get the two of them, establishing that they're in a relationship. We get the Magneto's, obviously not asshole anymore, or maybe he's a little bit of an asshole, but he's not what he was. But they're basically establish that they're plotting something, and then where does it happen here? It's the risk. It says, and we have, what will happen to us, our love? It might cease to exist, their relationship. And she basically said, well, 2 billion lives are worth that. So she's putting her
when I start getting gray hair that it goes like that.
Oh yeah, right. Absolutely, just perfectly
stays it on top, and then I just get the white.
Well, you know what? You still have hair, right?
That's true.
So yeah, they established that they're going to send her subconscious or consciousness into the future. Right? Is that established right here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then before she knows it, Catherine Pride Rasputin is entranced, her soul flung out across the abyss of eternity. What happens next is anybody's guess.
Dun dun dun. And then
hello, Manu. Manu is in the house, my friend. Yeah, let's just take a look at some of these ads real quick. The Art of John Byrne, Marvel Comics 20th anniversary calendar. Yes, please. And then join the official Star Wars fan club. Also, yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah, this is, I guess, right before Empire Strikes Back. Well, I guess Empire Strikes Back had just come out that summer.
Yeah.
There is an ad for an Empire Strikes Back hat in the second one.
That's right. That's right. I
was like, dang it.
That Art of John Byrne book is pretty sweet. I picked it up about a year ago.
I had it and I sold it because I'm a jerk. But I also sell things for a living. So
that's true. It is. It's a pretty sweet book, though.
And also, be a slam dunker. Stuff shots. Be a real elevator man. Jumping ability will increase 6 inches in 6 weeks. How amazing is that? Yeah, they don't make comic books like they used to. All right, best splash page in this book. Best page in this book, maybe. I don't know. I always love this. Something about this figure. They've used it in. I remember seeing this figure. It's always stuck with me. And there's a couple of different ways that Byrne draws Kitty in different motion, and there's so much body language in it. Like here, she's just like, "Whoa, I'm here," and she's also like, "What the hell's going on? Where am I?"
I mean, this is the perfect way to draw awkward. Like if you were to describe awkward, like you can't draw it any better than that.
Yeah,
like she's like, yeah.
Stopped it in her tracks.
And it's like the one leg, the left leg, the way it's like kind of tilted up. like kind of on her toes, and you could tell she's young too from the back. You know, he would not draw Storm's backside like this.
Right.
Like you
Right.
could tell this is like a young character, and that's
Mhm.
something Byrne's pretty good at. Not a lot of artists are really good at drawing young anybody. You know,
Mhm.
like where I've told you I've been reading Nightfall, and the art is like kind of inconsistent, and it's like some artists draw Robin looking perfect. He's like young looking, and then you get like Jim Aparo draws him looking like a 30-year-old man. And so, you know, it's like drawing young is like hard for some artists.
Yeah, but
Byrne is really good at it.
yeah, not for Byrne. And there's so much action going on this page. It's just I always love this page, but specifically the perspective and Kitty. Yeah, there's just something so much body language in that. And so she goes to 1980, Halloween on 1980, and she's not supposed to be in the danger room because she's still a rookie, you know, and they're all kind of freaking out because she doesn't completely know how to control her powers yet, even though all she has to do is turn on her powers and she can't be hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is you know, so she comes in, they're all freaking out. Darts are coming, even though they look like small stealth
Missiles.
planes or missiles. Yeah. And you know, Wolverine is Wolverine. He's basically like you know, even though he's not the team leader, he kind of is. He's
Yeah, because Cyclops isn't around right now.
Yeah, he left.
Yeah.
I think Wolverine's team daddy. He's team daddy. That's what he is. And then Colossus starts freaking out, and I like this. This is the thought bubbles. I love the thought bubbles. This is serious. Hold on. This is serious. The harder we fight, the more difficult our tests become. I'm not gonna do it. But protect Kitty. We must protect her. And then he's like, I like this part. It's very thoughtful to think about it. Claremont wrote, he's like, I can't catch her when I'm metal because she's going to get all fucked up if I catch her and she basically hits a metal wall. And I kind of like that because it's just, there is some thoughtfulness in writing that into the story.
By the way, I read this on Wikipedia, and I don't know if this is, I was just curious because you just said Claremont wrote it. Wikipedia says he didn't write any of these two issues, that he didn't like the idea. I was just curious if you guys knew if that was true. His name's there.
Yeah, he's the co-plotters.
It said that he had no ideas for this. He didn't like the idea, and so he didn't have anything to do with it. I was just curious. I know you don't trust everything you read on the internet.
Yeah, I've
not heard that. I've heard that Ed Piskor talks about when he was doing X-Men Grand Design.
Yeah.
And he interviewed and did a lot of like talking to Chris Claremont,
Mm-hmm.
you know, trying to like piece the whole lore together into a kind of a coherent recap story. But he said that Chris was like, I want to do a Galactus trilogy. So that's why it's only like a 2-issue thing.
Sure.
And, you know, it's like just kind of like an in and out story. That's it. Even though it's like parts of it are played on forever. But, you know, it's like really these 2 issues are pretty self-contained.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I mean, there's probably a good bit of Marvel method going on here. So,
and it could have been one of those things where like Claremont wrote the plot or a lot of the plot and Byrne dialogued it, or vice versa. You know, that could be one of the things. It is very wordy, so I kind of lean towards Claremont being the scripter, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, it flows. The story flows real well.
And also too with the writing in it, it seems like because if you're reading X-Men up until this point, you know who these people are, but there's like these introductions as you go through that are kind of repetitive. So I don't know if maybe there's some thought into it, like, hey, this is going to be the introduction for a lot of people because of this thing we're doing. And so we need to be more descriptive. I don't know, that thought kind of came to mind because I'm like, why? They don't need to describe all of these people the way that they're doing it in every issue here, you know, unless they think it's your first time learning about these characters.
I feel like that happens a lot in these books, in a lot of
that's a Jim Shooter thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's
his
right.
philosophy was every comic is somebody's first comic. So during his tenure, you'll see it across X-Men. You see it a lot in X-Men because there's so many characters they have to do it a lot. But like even in like Spider-Man, there's always some kind of like recap of I got bitten by the spider and blah blah blah. And like Hulk, it's like I'm always tormented after the Gamma bomb went off. It's like there's always some panel or page where they kind of introduce themselves. And I think the writers would try to put it in a narrative flow as opposed to just like, you know, a recap page of some sort. But that was definitely a Jim Shooter thing that, you know, he thought every book is potentially somebody's first book.
And it makes sense. Like from a marketing standpoint, it truly does. I think there are certain characters with the exception to the rule at this point. You know, if you don't know Batman or you don't know Spider-Man, you don't know Wolverine, then you're like 2 years old and you probably can't read anyway. So
at this point, for sure. But really, when you think about this, Wolverine had only been around for 5 years.
Sure. At this point,
you know, and X-Men had just kind of become the top seller around the end of the Death or the Dark Phoenix saga is when X-Men finally like, you know, came up above Spider-Man and FF and like took the top spot and then held on to it for the next 20 years.
Yeah. And yeah, so that whole thing makes sense, but you're right. There is a little bit of repetitiveness. And then I will say this, there's a lot of this book that you could actually read dialogueless and still know what's going on. You know, like she's going through the trials. She figured out how to use her powers. She just literally walks through the danger room. I absolutely love this panel of levity, just, you know, for a second of getting it. Wolverine and Nightcrawler specifically are cracking their asses up. And, you know, and then we get, I'm wrong. She doesn't get zapped into her consciousness here. She gets zapped here on this page. Oh, the kids are running wild.
Yeah.
But she gets zapped into her and you know, future Kitty goes into past Kitty, and they all start freaking out, and they bring her to the med room, and this is where she wakes up, and she says to Nightcrawler, Kurt, it's you. You're really alive, and you know, you can actually see the shift in her face here. You know, Byrne does a good job. Doesn't really age her, but there is something about those eyes that is not the same kid who's right here. So, but this is kind of where it starts to kick off, you know, the future, the days of future past. And,
yeah, she definitely has a more serious look on her face in that panel with Storm, where it's both their faces.
Yeah, right there.
Even that panel, it's like you can just see it's like a more serious like tone on her face. She's not like wide-eyed, like, oh my gosh, this world is crazy. She's very serious, like, I can't believe this really happened. I need to get to work. Like,
yeah. It's really, you're really right. What you know, talking about the way that Byrne draws faces and everything that was said already. He's so goddamn good at it. Amber's in the house. Amber, I know you probably can't stay the whole time, but here we are. Kitty Pryde just went into Kitty Pryde. That's what just happened. And she starts, it's funny, like the whole kitten, it's been years since you called me that. And she's basically starts telling them about what's going on. You know, today, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants murder presidential candidate Robert Kelly, along with Charles and Moira. And it basically sets off the 30 years of events that happen.
I do like how she says there, you did tell me that the most difficult part of this was going to be convincing you, you know, or difficult. Yeah. I thought they could have gone into that a little more because it just seems like, okay, we'll have Professor X read your mind and we'll know. Let's just get on a plane.
Conveniently, he's not there. But you know, like so many stories fall from the whole, like, I have to tell you guys something and nobody listens or they don't believe, and they spend fucking, you know, whether it's a movie or book, they spend hours or pages trying to convince, but you know, they all kind of buy it real quickly because they trust her and it works. And we're better off for it, because if we had to read half an issue of her being like, look, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, and stuff starts happening, they're like, maybe she is telling the truth. Yeah, it would have just pissed us all up. So pissed us all off. I don't know what that means, to piss us all off.
This could be too the whole, you know, we've dealt with you know, if we were reading this in 1981, we haven't thought about time travel yet, so we're just believing, you know. Whereas now we look back at it and say, well, you could have done a little more, you know. So I think that's maybe some of that playing in there.
Now let me get your both of your opinions, since we're all of the same age. Sentinels, okay? This panel, I always thought that Sentinels were 25 to 35 feet tall, maybe a little bit bigger. This panel down here, they are. This panel here, they're about 16 and a half feet tall. I get it for art's sake. It's really hard to do perspective on that. Like, if Byrne was trying to do that actual perspective on this panel, the panel would have to be the size of the page to get the perspective right. It is kind of strange, though, that are not the same size in certain places. Like on the cover of this, that he's, you know, the Sentinel's holding
the size of a building.
Yeah. But here they're 16 and a half feet tall. So
yeah,
but
you have a point. I've never noticed. I've never given that thought. And usually I'm pretty aware of that kind of stuff, but
yeah, size, giant mech or robots and stuff like that have always fascinated me. I think it's probably started with the AT-AT walkers and Empire Strikes Back. That was like my first exposure to something that was like mechanical and gigantic, and the perspective, you know, when Luke's going up there and
yeah,
you know, and so sometimes it pisses me off sometimes. But
for me, it's like, even as a kid, it always bugged me as Transformers, the like Megatron, a handgun would transform into a robot as big as Optimus Prime. It was a truck, you know. That always used to, even as a kid, and I loved Transformers then. That always bugged me. But so I see what you're saying. Like,
he could have easily just cut them off.
And Soundwave, a tape deck, you know, it was supposed to be like this big.
Right,
you know?
right.
And he could transform as big as like anybody else. Like
such weird magic. He could have, and you're right. That Tyler's right. It's kind of like if you would just cut them off at the chest or the legs, it would have conveyed how big they were. I always thought it was AT-AT, just easier to say. It is AT-AT. All terrain. I don't know. Actually, I forget what it stands for.
Yeah, I say AT-AT.
I
say AT-AT, but I say ATST for the chicken walkers.
Yeah, it's kind of strange that we do that. Amber said, I always thought that different sizes were due to different things needed, like a gun. So maybe there are two different sizes of Sentinels.
Well, there are the upgraded versions when they break into the facility, and I assume they seemed bigger, you know, in that issue. And then, I mean, but you're right. Even the one where Colossus, we'll get to it, but you know, the building with them, and you kind of see him slumped against the building. He's massive, you know. So
yeah. They don't explain it, but I guess, you know, part of all of this is just using the imagination, because we have to imagine a lot of it anyway with motion and the voices, and you know, and just So maybe that's it, or it's just inconsistency.
I do kind of wish in the movies they looked more like this, though, instead of that kind of liquid metal whatever that they did.
Yeah, agreed.
It's been a while since I've watched that movie, but I remember thinking in the movie, I was like, these are cool, but they don't look like, they look more like Nimrods in a way. It was like an army of Nimrods than an army of like Sentinels. These kind of Sentinels.
Yeah, these are the classic Sentinels. They did them well though in the animated series, so we got it there. It's like our military vehicle. Really? Holy shit! I didn't know that. Did you know that Humvees are actually HMMWVs?
I did not.
All right. Well, Tyler, thank you for teaching us something. This episode is over. So Kate is telling them all about what's going on, what happened, and basically that everybody's dead. And she starts crying and nobody knows what to say. And then she says the rest of the world became more frightened of the Sentinels than the mutant kind, which is interesting because, you know, it turns into just machine versus man. And they threaten war if the Sentinels moved against them. The Sentinels, driven by their prime directive, are about to make that move. So, yeah, they're hammering it home. They do, you know, the story does a really good job in telling us the severity of it. And as she's talking, we flash forward to New York City in 2013, which is the second to last year I lived there. And I do remember it being like this. I do.
I heard it's like that now. That's what it is. But Fox News is telling me anyway.
Yeah, Fox News tells you that, and it is true. It's very true.
So we get, and it's funny that Franklin Richards is married to Rachel Summers because that's the kids, the kids of the the offspring. And like I said, Franklin, some of these characters, they don't even make it halfway through the book. He's toast. He is absolute toast. Yeah. Given his power level, Franklin dies way too easy because we all know at this point, I mean, he is one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe.
He supposedly lives to the end of the universe.
Yeah, but not here. Out here, the quarterback is toast.
So before you turn the page, I want to comment 2 quick things. Over on the Avengers panel where they're all killed, I'm sorry, the Sentinels are not taking the Hulk out. They're not.
No, they're not.
The Hulk will destroy every Sentinel before they destroy him.
And Ghost Rider's probably unkillable also.
Yes. Now he can't do like a penance stare on Sentinels, but yeah. But anyway, okay, we got to get them out of the picture though, for story's sake, to make this future work. Let's just assume they all died somehow. But that other panel on the bottom right, that one, I love that panel though.
Yes,
I mean that just there's fear in it because I guess Wolverine's the only one with operational powers, or have they gotten there? They haven't gotten their inhibitors off yet, have they?
No, they haven't. They're still. I believe. Actually, no. It's really hard to tell. This copy's not the greatest copy. The printing and the colors are a little off, but it kind of looks like it because they all look like they're wearing turtlenecks.
And Rachel was able to use hers.
Well, let's see. It might be on the following page.
And then I think Magneto's coming up, so maybe they are off. But
yeah, they are.
But still, it's just an awesome panel. And the coloring with the green of the figures in the foreground and everything, and the light coming off the Sentinel's chest. It's just an awesome panel.
It is. It's the epic Sentinel panel. Yeah, it's effective. The light source thing is really what sells it. Yeah. Absolutely what sells it. But he is toast as shit. I do want to point out what the hell who made Dr. Doom look like Dr. Derp.
I think he looks like Grimace with a mask.
He does. Oh man, somebody needs to clip this, but because we've got a great clip for Instagram, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Derp. But yeah, so we get our first battle with the Sentinels, and they toast one. Magneto, is that Magneto? Yeah, it is Magneto. That's no. Who the hell is that?
That's Franklin.
That is Franklin. Yeah. So then who gets? Franklin doesn't get killed. This is really confusing. Isn't that Franklin?
I thought it was. I was a little confused at this too, to be honest.
Because this is Magneto right here, right? No, who is?
No, in the front, that's Magneto in that panel in the middle.
Yeah,
dead center of the page. That's Franklin. And then, but she said, that's Rachel yelling.
That's Rachel
Franklin.
that says Franklin.
Ah!
Yeah. Then,
okay, so maybe that is Magneto doing that then on the next page.
But why is he standing?
Or is it Rachel? It might be Rachel.
Okay, it's Rachel. It is Rachel.
Yeah.
All right. That's confusing. Anyway, that is the wonkiest Doom we've ever seen. If Jack Black plays Dr. Doom, that's what he would look like.
Hey, Lord.
We should do.
Don't give him any ideas.
So now that we got this all figured out, so Rachel toasts one, then Storm tries to toast one, but it doesn't do anything, and then we get our first fastball special, and it was really cool. They talk about it. How long has it been since we practiced a fastball special? The only confusing thing is Colossus is Russian. Why is he saying hola? Is that a Russian word that I don't know? That's Russian because it's clearly Spanish for hello.
I don't think he's saying hello, Wolverine.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It must mean something like yes or something. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. If somebody wants to chime in with an answer, that would be fun.
If you know Russian in the chat, please let us know.
Yeah. Otherwise, he's saying hello, Wolverine, which doesn't make any sense.
They've been together for a few minutes.
So we get Wolverine going claw first into the face of a Sentinel. I love that panel, and I love the squack. And but the Sentinel still persists,
but it leaves an opening for Aurora to lightning the shit out of it. I do love the way that it kind of looks like, it's just a cool way to convey that a toasted face of the Sentinel. And then Colossus knocks a building down on the other one. See that? Yeah, these look to be about 25 feet tall now. So it is, the perspectives are kind of confusing. But anyway, they beat them and they're heading to the Baxter building. And we flash forward to 1980, where the Brotherhood of Mutants, led by Mystique. Yeah. And I do, the vibe of the Brotherhood of the Mutants is great. They're still dressing like it's 1965. And, that is their vibe. It's Pyro that really sells the 60s clothing vibe. And I forgot that he was British.
And this is like a new Brotherhood. If they appeared before, it wasn't in X-Men. I mean, Mystique, I know, appeared in Avengers.
Yeah. I think they talk about it in here, too. I think they say...
Yeah, he mentions he was in the Brotherhood with Magneto.
Yeah. Blob mentions that he's the only OG member.
So this may be like the first time you see all of them together as the new Brotherhood.
That's a key issue. Right there, you heard it.
It's a key issue for a lot of reasons.
I know.
I mean, it's the first Rachel Summers, too. So,
see? Look at all this stuff. You learn something every day. All right, now we get, there's the Empire Strikes Back hat.
There's the hat.
Yeah, I gotta get both of those. And then the calendar and the Pez is very rare. You see ads with DC and Marvel, but they're right there. And we got to go to Clint's Comics in Kansas City because over 10 years in service, 1 million comics in stock. 1 million fucking comics.
Yeah,
there's like a GSX for all of us.
I thought it was cool that they had. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
They have ads from like there's one in California. There's another, you know what I mean? So they just like, hey, you want to put your hand in a comic book? Doesn't matter what state you're in. It's kind of cool reading through them. Yeah,
it's fun to see this stuff because, geez, a time machine. Not even a time machine. Just like having places like this these days would be amazing. So we get introduced. We get, they're both Pyro and the Blob. It's like when villains butt heads. It's like this. And it's a fun little panel to see all that. It's a way for John Byrne and Claremont to show you their powers. Pyro's got his fire. And then this dude can, whoever this guy, Avalanche, he can disintegrate stuff. Interesting power. Never heard of this guy before or after. And then Mystique's like, listen, you motherfuckers. All right. We got work to do. Stop button heads. We got to go kill Senator Kelly. And then we get to Senator Kelly doing his thing and talking to Charles and Moira. And what do we got here? Oh, Storm walks in with, I guess that's Kitty. This is also like really tough to see what's going on down there. I don't know if it's like that on your copy.
I think it's like Kitty and Colossus. And
I think Angel too walks in. I don't think he's on the panel though, but yeah, they all walk in and then it's like, what's going on?
Yeah, and Charles is like, what's wrong? And I guess does Charles read? Open your mind. Yeah. Okay. Open your mind. And Charles figures out what's going on or sees it, but they don't show his reaction because the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants bust through the wall, which shatters like a particle board holding 2 windows. We need a DeLorean to send us back. Yes. Does anybody have any plutonium available? Avalanche, longtime Brotherhood and Freedom Force member. Once again, never heard of the guy before and after. I don't even know what the Freedom Force. Where does that appear?
It's basically when this group of Brotherhood of Mutants, they start working kind of with the government in a way. And they call themselves the Freedom Force. So and it's this group.
They're basically the Thunderbolts then, before the Thunderbolts.
Yeah. In a way.
And Lamar points it out. I mean, it would not surprise me if John Byrne did that on purpose. But yeah, Senator Kelly is Robert Redford. It's the mouth. It's the mouth that really sells it. Like a younger Robert.
Yeah.
Robert
and the
Redford.
hair.
Yeah, the hair too. Yeah.
Minus the gray, but He looks a
No.
lot like Robert Redford in the MCU movie,
It's true.
Winter Soldier movie.
Yeah, he plays what's his name? Director, whatever.
Yeah.
Director, whatever. So then the Brotherhood of the Mutants, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, bust in, and we get our in costume everybody, and we know a schmaz is about to go down. They're about to go fuck each other up. I do love this ad, the Spider-Woman ad. It's perfect because it's very much like what they were doing with She-Hulk, the world's most misunderstood superheroine. She's just like, don't ask me why. I like that they use comedy in some of these series.
I love the Elvira hair.
The Elvira hair, it's huge. It's huge. Oh, Manu's got some Manutonium for sale. Bad joke, but good joke. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, Tyler. So that ends issue number 1, and it's great. It's like the pace of it's fantastic. Like my complaints about there being a little too much dialogue, or it's just me finding something to bitch about. But it moves great. It moves great. Like I sat on the couch the other night and I opened it up and I'm by the time like I was on the 4th page, I was like, oh God, I forgot how much how great the pace is on this. And so we get to issue 142. And it's such a great. There's only one thing about this cover that I don't completely love, and I bet it's I'm sure I've heard other people talk about it. Storm looks like a doll.
The doll, yeah, I was just saying the
Like
doll, like he's holding a Barbie.
Yeah,
like a stiff action figure, even.
Yeah,
yeah, and I bet that was something that, like, my guess is that they were deadlined or something like that, because also. What is this?
she gets stabbed in the story, so I think that's them depicting that.
I would like to see the original art to this page and see if there's not some kind of like pasted up area there.
Yeah,
like something got redrawn or something.
It feels like they stuck that hand in after the fact. Like somebody's like, "Well, where's his other hand?" And they're like, "It's behind the glass." No, we got to see it.
Yeah,
like that.
That would make the most
because
sense.
the perspective is weird too, because you got this and then it's the hands like way. It seems like it's was definitely an afterthought.
You know what, Daryl? Now that you mentioned it, I think I might have seen the original art for this. I think it was at the Art of the Marvel exhibit that I went to in Portland, and the one that Comic Tim went to also. I'll have to look and see if I have a still photo of it, because I might. But I also it might have just been this one. Either way, it's an iconic cover. It's still it's a little baffling about what's going on in there. All right, so
and you got to call out the call out on it though. This issue, everybody dies. And that's no lie.
That is no lie. That is no lie. Now, I think the thing that I really love about that page that I pointed out in the first issue is what I love about this page. There's just they're two different perspectives, but they're the same thing. Like, he drew almost the exact same thing. The arms are in, but the
feet are the same.
The feet are the same. She, whatever is happening on her face, the look on her face is something like this. And I just love, they're both complementary to each other. And I love the kitty figure in the foreground and everything else going on in the background, and kind of it's splitting the time. It's Mind Out of Time, and she's splitting the 2 times right here. So it's just it's such a great opening splash page.
Yes.
I agree. Enough said.
I bet the only reason he didn't have her arms out is because he wanted it would have covered up stuff he wanted to do on the side.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I bet he would have, if that's what he was going for.
Sure. 100%. It would make sense. And linking these two worlds, these two desperate battles, is Catherine Pride. In her hands lies, of course, talking about her hands, the fate of mutant kind, of humanity, of the earth itself. Failure is unthinkable, yet success may well be impossible, for she seeks to change history. Perfect byline, or whatever you want to call it, subtitle. And great opening splash with double Wolverine and Kitty in the center, and also Kitty in the background. And then this,
once again, it's something about Byrne. The way he conveys motion is fan-fucking-tastic. You know, everybody in this panel's, you know, either getting ready for battle or moving into battle. Wolverine crouched down. Kitty kind of like, she's doesn't know what to do, but she's ready. Storm is ready. Colossus is, you know, and then Kelly's back there like, oh gosh, oh my God, I'm racist and I hate them all, you know, because he says it right here. This is monstrous. How dare you freaks turn the United States Senate into a battlefield? How dare you threaten me? Marshals, arrest those people. Way to understand, buddy.
I love how in that everybody's got their space, and you know, ever drawn groups of people, it's really, really difficult to do that and give them each their space without covering up or blending or this arm going into this guy or whatever. And it's just really, I mean, it's a amazing artwork, and just not only showing the motion, but each person, you can see everything you need to see about them. And just, yeah, extremely well done.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
Even-
cop.
Even Destiny getting squeezed in there.
And the cop going to take out the blob, and the blob's just like, blah, you're a fly.
You don't even have a name tag.
No, he doesn't. He's just he's nameless cop. I'll refrain from saying anything bad. So yeah, it's just a great opening to this battle. The Art of John Byrne still being sold. And yeah, it's just a fun little action sequence, or a big action sequence. You got a little Nightcrawler doing his thing, and you know, saying, I can punch and disappear. I don't know how to do a German accent. Far faster than you can react near. What does that say?
Oh, like Chekhov every time you try to imitate somebody. Like you sounded like Chekhov when you did
what I did.
Colossus. You just sounded a little like Chekhov right now.
Maybe I should switch to Borat. I can punch and
There you go. Now I'm going to hear that voice every time I read Nightcrawler.
But yeah, this is just great action sequence with everybody displaying their power, and Storm actually butting heads with Wolverine. I really like this too, where he goes to just basically kill Pyro by stabbing his
Fuel tank.
Thank you, fuel tank. And Storm's like, no. And, you know, they butt heads, and they keep it, you know, they keep that going throughout some of this issue. Senny's in the house. Senny says, I've always been a big fan of Byrne pencils as a kid reading these issues, especially loves the way he draws Rubble. Yeah. And the previous page right here, you could see it in here too, but yeah, the Rubble here as is that earthquake avalanche tears up the floor, and you can see some of the rubble here. Yeah, he's really good. I fully admit I did not appreciate John Byrne as a kid, as a teen. I didn't appreciate John Byrne until I dove back into comics more recently, owning a lot of his stuff and seeing a lot of his original art in person.
I would say, if you're saying your first exposure to him was those like later Wolverine issues, like they're in like the late teens.
Yeah,
right?
18, 19, 20,
Yeah.
21. Yeah.
And I think he's inking himself on those. And there's a difference between that and this with Terry Austin.
Sure.
And because my first exposure to Byrne, which I didn't really realize it was my first exposure to him, was in some classic X-Men issues. And it was around the Proteus story that I picked up as a kid. And I remember really liking those. And I felt like whatever X-Men was going on at the time, which was probably somewhere in the like John Romita Jr. or early Silvestri run. And it's like, I liked the art, but it was like so wordy and impenetrable to me. So I would pick up the occasional classic X-Men if Wolverine was on the cover. And that was probably my earliest, but I wasn't really paying attention to like, oh, this John Byrne guy is pretty good. But,
right.
You know.
Yeah. He was a name that saw everywhere because it, you know, you pick up those Wolverine issues and then you pick up Fantastic Four at the same time, and you're seeing him do two of the bigger books, and his name was everywhere. And his name, you know, when you go back, and for me, when I look at, you know, old books and I get collections, I'm just like, man, this guy is just as prolific as Romita, you know, Romita Sr. or Buscema or Kirby.
He was doing this and Avengers. at the same time, and then I think he would even fill in like a third book every now and then,
It's crazy.
like Iron Fist. Well, I knew he was on Iron Fist before this.
And Claremont
he-
was writing that too, right?
Uh-huh. Yep. And they doubled up for like a few months before Iron Fist was canceled. And then I want to say he started his FF run towards the end of this towards the end of his time on X-Men.
Yeah.
And he was writing and drawing FF. But then he was also doing like West Coast Avengers.
That's right. Yeah, so much work,
I mean,
but
he was doing at least 2 books regularly and sometimes 3 books a month.
jeez.
Like the only other person I know of that did that kind of output was Kirby.
Yeah.
You know,
People just don't. I mean, there's nothing like that anymore. There's no one like that anymore. No one even close to that. Like, and there hasn't been for years. I mean, Kirkman might be the only person on the writing duties that was
on writing.
Yeah. But
Jeff Lemire seems to be writing everything these days.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But John Romita Jr. can do 2 at a time, but I don't think he has to anymore. So
No, he did in the 90s, but yeah, he doesn't
Yeah.
have to anymore. So
But I don't know any artist today that does more than 1 book at a time.
yeah. No, I don't think there is. Yeah, straight beast, John Byrne. Not to be confused with Hank Pym. No, not Hank Pym. Hank. What the hell's Beast's name?
McCoy.
Thank you.
Hank McCoy.
Hank McCoy. All right, so Moira moves Charles away. They're trusting a cop. Bad idea. And it turns out to be Mystique. And she gasses them. And then we shoot over to 2013. So once again, maybe there are 2 different types of Sentinels. And this is like a Sentry Sentinel that's, that this one looks to be about, 20 feet tall. But clearly other ones were 30 something feet tall or more. And so they've got what do we do?
Big recap.
Oh, they recap. That's what's going on. Yeah, they recap with the thoughts. And then we get, I didn't realize that Steve Ditko did Captain Universe.
I'd like to find those. I'd like to find those.
If I ever see
you're
them,
not really a Ditko fan.
No, I'm not. I you know what? I looked, the one thing that I think was a human fly. No, the cat. Did he do the cat? He did one of those he did one of those weird Marvel series later in the 70s that I stumbled upon recently, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I'm generally not a huge Ditko fan. I don't dislike him. I'm just not a fan.
Okay. I don't want to derail this conversation.
Okay. All right. So here we go. They're trying to make their way through the city to the Baxter building, and that's where we get this one Sentinel that's clearly, twice, at least 1.5 times the size of the one that we saw on the last page. Yeah. Because look at Storm.
Yeah. That's the picture I was talking about earlier when he leaning against a building, and you're like, dude, this guy's giant.
Yeah. So maybe there are 2 different types of Sentinels, or it is just, like trying to fit them in right panels, and they're basically just like, fuck perspective. You guys will figure it out with your brains. But I always love the Sentinel design. They're like big and clunky, but there's just something about them that I always enjoyed. But the funny thing is, why build a robot with biceps? Why are you building biceps on a? But it's the same kind of.
Why make it humanoid at all? Really?
Yeah, it's the same age-old argument with Arnold as the Terminator. If you're making a robot with muscles, why does he have an Austrian accent out of everything from an American company? But we have to. That's what kayfabe. You just have to suspend belief. So they get to the Baxter building. I do love that panel, Bryce. Yeah, it's great. I love this thing too, which is like such a cheesy thing. It's like, oh, they have this secret elevator, and this belt buckle will open this secret elevator. I'm like, oh, come on.
That's callback though. That's the way the FF had it in like the very early issues.
Was it? Okay. I figured it was something, but it's still silly.
Oh yeah, it is, but it's like straight out of the 60s,
Okay. So it was Byrne homaging that.
Yes, it's a definite callback to like the first few issues of the Fantastic Four. So
I do like this, and then it's funny because like, right, that panel is like kind of hokey and comic booky, and then this panel where Colossus says, "Are you nervous?" And she said, "A bit. My claustrophobia confined spaces still put me on edge, and I can't help thinking that it wouldn't take much to turn the tiny box into a death trap." And I'm like, that's actually really awesome, because
Yeah.
it's a conversation that like I could see having if I was in that situation. Like, we are vulnerable right now, and
I thought it was maybe going to foreshadow something like happening in that elevator, and then that was as far as it went. So
yeah. Well, that's also it kind of leads you to that, but we don't get to that panel next, so you don't know. It still kind of keeps you under suspense. Another panel. This panel's awesome. The motion of Kitty, the way that he draws Kitty in this it's just so appealing. And like you said, you could tell she's a teenager, she's a kid, but there's just something about the motion with everything else going on in the background that kind of is like, yeah, I know this is all going on, but I got to get out of here. I got to go do this thing. I got to stay safe and make sure that Senator Kelly doesn't get killed.
And there's something about the way that's composed where it's not like on like an angled plane going back, but you do get the sense of like Kitty in the foreground and everybody, she's like kind of away from all the other action. She's like closer to us and the action's like pushed back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she's, yeah. It really separates itself from a lot of the other things that happen in this book, just like those two splash pages. So Storm decides to blow them all out, even her teammate, out of the building, which, you can see Nightcrawler, Angel, Pyro, Avalanche. She's like, we got to get this out of here. And it's interesting because it makes this sound, and somebody says, "Good grief." Maybe it's Charlie Brown says, that sound, someone bombed the Capitol. And then it's like 2 panels later, there's an actual bomb sound of Colossus getting blown out of that building.
Whammo.
Yeah, whammo. I wonder what whammo actually sounds like in in the open air. But
I would think it'd have to echo a little bit. It'd be like whammo, whammo, whammo.
If it sounded like that, people would be like, "What the fuck just happened in there?" Whammo, whammo, whammo.
It's a great use of lettering too, because it's actually part of the motion lines.
It's right. It's directional. It's telling us exactly what we're supposed to see and how it's supposed to look. If you were there in person. And then coming out of that hole is the Blob. And I love it that he always talks about how what his powers are. It's the recap of his powers. It's like, I told you, Ruski, unless I decide I want to move, no force on earth can move me. Yeah, you said that already. You said it a bunch of times, and you said that you're going to squash somebody, and he says it again. But the Blob's not known for his intelligence. And then he rips up the ground, and then the army goes to shoot him, but they shoot Colossus instead. And I love it. Just another Zark, Shark, and the motion lines again. And then this idiot soldier.
Well, I think they're just shooting anybody. They say we'll sort them out later. So it's meaning to shoot one. He's just like,
they're just firing.
Oh
yeah. Reader, I know you forgot. Here's his powers. Nothing beats the Blob. And then soldier uses flamethrower, which is a very strange weapon for the U.S. Army to be using in 1980. But it was a bad idea because Pyro just takes that flame and turns it into a monster.
That flamethrower looks surprisingly a lot like a G.I. Joe character.
It might be.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I own that G.I. Joe. I don't know what its name was, but
yeah, and it's a very futuristic looking flamethrower. But I think the last time flamethrowers were used by the military was probably World War II, maybe in the Vietnam War. Maybe
I could see him doing it in Vietnam.
Yeah, burn the jungle down. I guess it's a thing to use, but definitely not 1980. Hey, what's up, Ryan? Welcome in. We are almost done with the second issue of Days of Future Past, aka Daves of Future Past. So we get a nice little battle, and the fire monster grabs Wolverine because Flame can now grab things, and then Storm uses her storm to make sure that Wolverine doesn't get toasted. I like how she said, and if I have to do it on the first pass, Wolverine won't survive long for me enough to do. Yes, he will. He's got a healing factor. But then Mystique takes the form of Kurt, and we get the Nightcrawler versus Nightcrawler, and Wolverine goes to just basically, they use that in the movie in the first one where Mystique takes the form of Jean and he stabs, right in the gut. And Wolverine's first instinct is to kill because he's the Wolverine. That's what he does.
I like how, again, there's that how short Wolverine is compared to Storm.
Yes.
I'm sure he's bending over a little bit, but it's definitely he's just
It's this panel right here where you're right. He may be crouched over a little bit, like this, but he's definitely, even if he was to stand up straight, he'd still be, his eyes would be looking at her brow, be like his eyes would be looking at like this.
Or maybe her chin.
That's how I meant her chin.
Like she's bent a little bit too, but if we were standing straight, yeah.
Yeah, I screwed up that whole point I was making, but thank you for that save, Bryce.
Hey, yeah, that's what I'm here for.
And Storm's supposed to be the leader at this point.
Yes.
Because Cyclops is left, and she's like taking over the team leader role.
And Cyclops walked from the team when Jean dies, right?
Yeah, like an issue or two later.
Yeah.
Which isn't too far from that.
I think he leaves
only about 6 issues later.
138 or 139. So, yeah, a couple before this starts, he leaves.
Yeah.
There we go. You guys got it. This is probably my favorite part of the fight right here, because Colossus knows that Wolverine can't be hurt of what he's about to do, and he takes this giant steel beam and puts it on Wolverine's back. And I love Wolverine. It's smart. It's smart EP to use me as a fulcrum for his lever that the I-beam will crack before my adamantium steel bones will. And yeah, it's great. It's great use of it. It's like the perfect thing. And Blob goes flying up, and bam, he just knocks him right into Avalanche, and yeah, it's gonna hurt Avalanche a lot more.
Really, really good teamwork from Colossus and Wolverine throughout. Whether it's the slingshot or the whatever. It's always cool how they're working together.
Colossus and Wolverine.
And they're just like, yeah, this is a good idea. Use it,
Yeah, because they knew each other's powers and they were complementary to each other. And I feel like Nightcrawler was good like that too, but he couldn't throw Wolverine, obviously like Colossus can. And then we get the monsoon from Storm, and they extinguish the fire monster, and Kurt knocks out Kurt. And we realized that he wasn't, the whole time he was telling the truth, that he was the real Kurt. So Mystique disappears, and another great panel of motion here. Just Byrne, doing what he does real well. And they're trying to find Kelly. And then we flash forward to 2013. The death box doesn't kill them, but there it is. Sentinel's probably he looks Galactus-sized in this because we're looking at the perspective. Like there's like 25, maybe 30 feet in between the two of them. So he's actually that big. And fastball special is the last fastball special. And this, I thought, this I thought was kind of, it's interesting because this is a more powerful Sentinel, and they say it. Pathetic organic being, are you so arrogant as to believe you could even approach, much less penetrate our innermost sanctum undetected? Wait, where is it that it says? There was something.
It's bottom panel over there on the left. Isn't it?
Yeah, there it is. Sentinel Omega 5 has been terminated. So these are Ultra.
Omega.
Yeah. These are Omega Sentinels. And that's why he toasts Wolverine to the skeleton, which I thought it's pretty interesting. Like they were, it's kind of like the theory of Godzilla or Jaws. The less is more. And all you get to see is the arm and a little bit of Wolverine's skull. But it's the look on their faces is what sells what just happened.
Yeah. I'm sure some of that was dictated by the code at the time, but it's cool you see like the channels where Wolverine's claws would go. This is the first time they've ever shown his skeleton in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't be until Pieces of Weapon X that you would see some of that.
Yeah.
But he toasts Wolverine gets it worse than anybody in the book, but it makes sense because
he has to get it worse than anybody because he's the best there is at what he does. He's the toughest SOB. He's the Stone Cold Steve Austin of the X-Men. And so Storm, I do like this panel. I like it whenever she electrocutes the head of a Sentinel.
Yeah.
And then Colossus goes to topple one. We get this great Doctor Strange head. I don't know who does the art on it. It says it's a Frank Miller thing, but it doesn't look like Frank Miller, but I guess it is. But still.
1980 Frank Miller. I didn't know he did any Doctor Strange.
Well, apparently he did. He did a lot of books that people don't know about that I'm still discovering. A lot of Marvel annuals and stuff, and Marvel team ups and 2-in-1s and all that stuff.
He did a couple team ups.
Yeah. So there's that Empire Strikes Back ad again. And there, you're right. Okay. So yeah, she does get stabbed with a whatever, some type of javelin
rod or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently
I've never quite been able to tell if that's something that the Sentinel picked up and threw at her, or if it's something that like shot out of its hand.
I think it's in the fingertip, or maybe the Sentinels are just known for being Olympic javelinists and they always carry javelins around with them. But I think what it's trying to convey is that it does come from the fingertip. But Aurora gets stabbed, and she's clearly, we're supposed to assume she's dead. I mean, she's lifeless. And that's the last we see of Colossus. He starts crying, and then he knocks that Sentinel clear out of the building. And his hands red with her blood, he screams. And moments later, when he feels himself gripped by a murderous berserker fury to rival Wolverines, he welcomes it. But then we find out, I want to say it was maybe a page later they talk about Colossus being dead. Or is it?
It's right there below.
Yeah, she says she can hear him or feel him die. Like,
that happened. She's like, he's dead so quickly.
That's right. That's right. So they toasted him, which is kind of strange. He's made of metal. I don't know how you do it, especially when you couldn't toast Wolverine's metal, but you toasted. Anyway,
he's not adamantium.
It's true. That's true. That's true.
He's organic metal, whatever that is.
I'm just being the devil's advocate, picking it apart.
This whole thing also makes me think more back to the cover, because the cover is just obviously a better version of the Wolverine getting toasted, and it happens to her after, and it just feels like, again, an afterthought with that cover and that other hand.
Yeah. It's like combining. It's like folding time and space to make it one thing, which is kind of what this is about. So we flash forward after Rachel is basically, hoping that Kitty/Kate can make, save the senator and make sure that this doesn't happen. And she says, now it's all up to you. And flash forward to 1980, or flash back to 1980, and Kitty saves the senator from being killed by Destiny, which is kind of strange because it's Destiny. And instantaneously she zaps out of herself, like instantaneously. So we're led to believe that did the trick. I guess it says in a split second. Hold on, I'm gonna just move this here. In a split second, an abyss opens within Kate Pride. Reality twists inside out, and suddenly she comes face to face with herself as a child. So innocent, so vulnerable, so young. Impulsively, she gives herself a kiss and lets the winds of eternity sweep her home.
That should have that's the one thing I thought, my gripe about this issue is I thought that should have at least been a picture. Like both kitties kind of looking at each other, and the older one and the younger one, in that moment. And then it flashes to this. I was kind of like, I missed opportunity there. That would have been cool.
You could have, because you didn't need everything that happens in this panel. Like you could have just kicked this out, put this here, and then made that a triple. Mm-hmm. But the words are good, but yeah, I agree with that. And then Storm comes in and basically says you're right, and that's where she kind of comes to and realizes she's not, because she just got zapped back. This does kind of end pretty, it ends pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also kind of the the brevity of this issue. You know, there is something to be said about the fact that this storyline is short, because it pretty much ends there. They fly Kitty back, and you know, Charles and Moira are okay, and perhaps where is it? That Kate Pride is a delightful and admirable a person as Kitty Pride. The rest you will discover in due course. So it's not like Charles knows anyway. I mean, he read her mind, but he wasn't there when any of this happened. He was out. What's up, Mattis? Mattis, we are all good, and I hope you're well too. Cool Daredevil fruit and cherry pie ad.
I think.
Yeah. I love those ads.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I was going to say, just before you turn the page, I think it's interesting how they even reference her remembering the kiss.
Yeah.
Oh, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I just remember being kissed." Like, okay, and then yeah, it just kind of abruptly ends.
I know, it is kind of strange. We saved Centered Kelly. Kitty's mind has been returned to a body. Does that mean we change the future? And it's funny. It's cool because it leaves it open ended. And I know they come back to it on several different things. I know you said it, Daryl, and I've heard other people talk about like Days of Future Past has had, you know, there's been more layers added to it. I don't think I've read any of them. And then this last page is basically just saying that like Centered Kelly's going down that path, you know, either way. Yeah. It's just that maybe it goes down a different path of hatred. You know, it's like he's going to be a piece of shit no matter what. I mean, after all, he's a senator. But yeah, I do love that it's a great short story, and it's very easy to read. Even, you know, everything about it is easy to read. It's not confusing or convoluted at all. Like they did a really good job with making a time travel story that isn't, you know, you won't get lost in the theories of it forever. But yeah, any please add whatever you'd like.
Go ahead, Bryce. I feel like I've been cutting you off over and over.
No. I've enjoyed talking about it. I mean, I love both the issues. I do feel, and I mentioned this to Dave before we started, that, you know, if we had read it when it came out in 81, I think I'd probably be like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever read. I think reading it, you know, older and having seen Terminator and Back to the Future and all those type of things, I think you can go back and kind of like, well, we could have done this or that. But I mean, you know, judging it's 40 years old and you know, they all thought this was going to happen in 2013 or depicting 2013. I think it's a great writing, and the artwork, again, as we've all talked about, is just phenomenal throughout. And you know, it's really, really cool to go back and reread it and check out all the artwork again and then see those cool ads. So that was a lot of fun.
We only get one more Byrne issue after this, and then he's
that's when he's gone, right?
Yep, he's gone. 143 is his last issue, I think.
I think maybe I need to start just reading the entire Byrne run and nothing else, you know, because I love his artwork on this. And, you know, Jim Lee, I loved his artwork, but God, by the time Jim Lee's on the book, it's just such a hard book to read.
It's hard.
Yeah. That the Captain America, Black Widow, Wolverine issue 238, whatever, 268. That's the best issue of that run because it's a one and done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just so much lore and stuff had been built upon to that point that it was a convoluted mess. And as a kid, I had a hard time. I liked the art, and I would keep trying. Like, you know, it's like I'd see a cool cover like that one you just mentioned, and you get that one, and be like, this is good. And then you come back for the next issue, and be like, I'm lost. I have no idea what's going on. You know, it took me a long time to like really get into X-Men, and I had to kind of do a binge read when I got like a big run of them, and then I like spent a summer reading them, and I was like, oh, I love this. I see why it's like so popular, you know, overall.
Yeah. And this storyline's just, it's perfect for what it is. And for like, if you were going to give somebody an X-Men book, either this or maybe God Loves Man Kills. Senny, it's in a box, and I
do. Hold on, let me grab it. I have it.
Okay. But we don't have a top-down camera for you.
What's being asked about?
Show the cover. I was just going to show the cover.
Oh, the cover. Yeah. He wanted to look at the quick glance of the next issue, 143.
Oh,
well, I got time for that.
Yeah. John said, in hindsight, it's deeply foundational. Kitty and Colossus getting married, Magneto taking Professor X's place, Mystique and Nightcrawler being related. Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, there's so many reasons for this being such an important issue, and that's a great point out right there. And then Rachel Summers shows up.
I forgot about the Nightcrawler connection there. When he's like, wait, I've still got no.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to. I have questions. And,
he's like, you have blue skin like me. We must be connected.
Wait. How does he sound when he says that, Dave?
Please don't leave. My wife. Are you my wife? Oh yes, and happy belated Canada Day to you, Madison. Everybody else in Canada.
What Claremont wanted that to be? With Nightcrawler and Mystique. He wanted Mystique to be the mother. Actually, he wanted Mystique to be the father with Destiny.
Oh.
Mystique using her morphing powers.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted, and that got
yeah, because it was
too much for the editors. And more like, I don't know about that.
They weren't ready for it in the 80s. Now it'd be fine. Be fine now.
And now they'd happily make a whole campaign around it. But,
yeah. Oh, look at what we did. We're so just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. It'll be okay. You don't have to be like, we're doing it. Oh.
Yeah.
But they don't want to scare the straights.
I do love in both of those issues, and I know this exists elsewhere too, but it was just that little editor's comments here or there, with the little asterisks and all that. That was, pretty cool. Like, oh, you can reference this one or this happens.
Do they do that anymore? I mean, do they do editor's notes like that?
I don't think I've seen it recently at all. I see it in the old ones, but
yeah, it was a mainstay of the old ones. It'd be like, it'd be like when I'm trying. Who was the editor in chief when we were younger? I can't remember his name. In the late 80s, early 90s. Was it Salicrup?
I don't know. Was he editor in chief after Shooter?
I think it was Salicrup for a little bit. I feel like I saw a lot of Salicrup notes.
Tom DeFalco was editor in chief for a while.
Yeah.
And Bob Harris ever editor in chief, or was he just over X-Men?
I think he was just X-Men, but DeFalco was one of the big ones too. And I would love seeing that. Like, he'd be like last issue or issue 142 or more, it'd be like referencing something in the Fantastic Four, but it was in a different book.
Well, like last time I was on with you, Dave, and we were doing our top 5 stories and I didn't even get to it. And I've still got the issues pulled out here because of editor's notes. This Hulk issue, had an editor's note because he goes into the micro world that he frequented. It had a editor's note for the first appearance of Jarella, and that's when I went and got my first Silver Age book. It sent me to go get this, and fortunately, the comic shop that was in my town that I went to did have the issue, and so that was like my first I followed an editor's note to the comic shop. And they had the issue, and it was a Silver Age issue, which, I mean, I don't remember what I paid for it back then, but it's probably like $8 or something. Yeah. Which, that time was still just like, oh, this is like all the money I got on this one book.
That's like $3,000 now.
Yeah.
yeah. So that's how I followed editor's notes, and it led me down a path of now I want every appearance of this Jarella character.
Yeah. I mean, they put them in there for that reason, so that you could find out more. It's like the internet before the internet. I don't remember if Archie Goodwin was editor-in-chief. Definitely not in the late 80s and 90s, I don't think. But he might have been. He might have been. So Shooter was.
This book is 88, so I'll tell you who's editor-in-chief on this one.
Yeah. I feel like 88 would have been DeFalco. And then maybe after it was Salicrup, or maybe it's the other way around.
Shooter was there up till about 86.
Yeah, like after
this was Tom DeFalco.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah,
I know Shooter was there like the Hulk 340 with Wolverine McFarlane cover. Shooter was still the editor in chief at that point. So DeFalco must have just followed him.
Yeah. but I think all in all, and I'm not going to speak for the both of you, but I think this is the single, like the best storyline. Well, no, I shouldn't say that because Dark Phoenix Saga is amazing.
Yeah.
But I would say that this is, for a shortened storyline, the best X-Men storyline ever.
So I usually point to, there's a run that starts around like, I think 124 or so, and it's the Proteus story.
Yeah.
The Proteus and then Dark Phoenix and then this all happen within like 18 months.
Yeah.
So that is a chunk of like creative, just like explosion. I feel like, I mean, that's up there with like some of the Lee Kirby stuff
Mm-hmm.
of like, you know, you have Galactus, Black Panther, Return of the Surfer, Doom stealing. It's like all that's
Inhumans,
happening.
all of that.
Yeah, Inhumans, all that's happening within like less than 2 years, and it's just incredible to think of like the creativity output that came in those 2 years of these two different creative teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I think that's going to be a thing that I'm going to do this year. I'm just going to read the entire Byrne, run. I have it all sitting in a box over there. So, it's just, I never did it, and I've read this and I've read Dark Phoenix Saga, but I should just go back and read the whole thing. All right, so Archie Goodwin was the late 70s. That makes sense because he would have been right at like when Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably would have been there for the start of the Byrne X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
And then Shooter came on.
What issue is it? One, or is it? It's not 96. Is
It's
it 106?
It's like 108, it's 108 or 109. It's like in the middle of like Cockrum's what is it, the Imcron Crystal story. It's like it's like the last issue of that. I think Cockrum had fell behind. I think the plan was for Byrne to come on later, like another 2 issues later.
Mm-hmm.
But Cockrum was like behind or something, and so he just like jumped on.
I should know this. I've sold every single one of those issues to Bryce. So. Any last thoughts on this at all, on just the story, or anything you wanted to say that you might have not had a chance to say?
I'm gonna go watch the movie again.
Yeah, I haven't watched the movie to this in a long time, but it's one of the better X-Men movies.
Yeah,
sure.
they did a good job trying to figure out how to make this a movie that everybody wanted to see. Basically, a Wolverine centric story.
Yeah, I think for the movie to use Wolverine in that like sense worked because Kitty wouldn't have worked for that universe of story they had already tried to tell. But Wolverine worked because you could send him all the way back to the 70s and he was still an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What doesn't work for the screen, well, I was saying this to Bryce before you jumped in. Elliot Page and Ellen Page at the time, she wasn't going to put people in the seats. No. She wasn't. She's started to get popular. Juno had come out, I believe, but you gotta sell tickets to it, and the only way to sell tickets is to put the guy that everybody wants to see. I mean, even Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, she was great, and Mystique is a huge part of the story, but they weren't going to sell the tickets.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it, and I'd like to revisit the X-Men animated series version of this too, just to see what changes and liberties and stuff like that they did.
I've tried to get my kids onto the animated series a few times, and it's like it just hasn't stuck with them for whatever reason. I did read Giant Size X-Men with them a couple nights ago, and so hopefully if they get into like we start reading from that point forward, that then I'll be like, you want to try that X-Men cartoon again? So
well, maybe by that time the new season will be out. X-Men 97. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Bryce, anything?
No, man, this has been great. Thanks for having me on to chat about it, and it's fun. And but no, I don't have anything that we haven't already said.
Well, it was lovely to have both of you on, and for everybody in the chat, if you didn't hear earlier in the show, if you go on Spotify, I'm not sure when it's going to drop on the other Apple and stuff like that. I know it's going to be on those, but if you go on Spotify and you look for "It Came from the Newsstand," the first episode of my podcast with Manu, the 9.9 Newsstand, is up right now, and you can follow Daryl. Won't give you his address. Hold on, there he is. But you can search Read Your Comics on YouTube, and you can check out his channel. It's a nice little dichotomy of the reaction that your kids have to comics, and then you doing a flip through, and then on Spotify, if you like music. If you don't, why would you have Spotify? You should check out Done Messed Up, because that's Bryce's band, and he just dropped a new cover album called Quit Hogging the Covers.
Yep, quit hogging the covers.
Yeah, and there's some good songs on there. Some stuff I didn't know, but the stuff I did know, I was really appreciative. But a couple of things also. Going on vacation. I'm going to try and do SunDAVE sit down from Europe, but there's no guarantee that Scottish or British Wi-Fi is going to support me. Not going to be doing any sales for a couple weeks either, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to be digging for comics in Europe. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll have to bring stuff back for everybody. Because who knows what we're going to find. I'm going to a Comic-Con in London.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, there just happened to be, I wasn't going specifically for this. I'm going actually to see Blur at Wembley Stadium, and then I'm going up to Scotland after that. But there just happens to be the London Film and Comic Convention next weekend, and I'm going on Saturday. Bisley's going to be there, and Brian Bolland's going to be there, and Mark Buckingham's going to be there. So, and Dolph Lundgren's going to be there. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's all.
Or you can find a VHS copy of the Punisher movie and go get it signed.
There we go. What were
You're
you
going
gonna say,
to film, right? You're going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I actually just brought a GoPro Hero 9 specifically to have a backpack strap for it. So I'm going to be filming with the GoPro so that I don't have to keep using my phone when I'm, while I'm out and about. I can just strap it on. But I'm going to go to stores in London. I'm going to see if I can find any flea markets. I'll see if Facebook Marketplace comes up with anything. You never know. Mm-hmm. And then Scotland will probably be a little bit harder to find stuff like that. But there's a pretty healthy comic market or comic store market in Scotland between Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Aberdeen. So really excited for it, and excited to share all that stuff with everybody on here. But yeah, so I appreciate you both for joining. And I know it's a holiday weekend, so hope everybody has a safe 4th, all that stuff. Don't blow your hand up. I mean, if you do, I'm gonna make fun of you. I am. You're everybody in here is an adult. They're fireworks. They go boom, 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 boom. Okay, we get it. Stop. Anyway, appreciate you. Yes, we're no. I appreciate you both. And everybody in the chat, I appreciate everybody. And don't forget to hit the like button on the way out, or don't. If you don't like it, then whatever. I can't do anything for you. But probably take a break from doing the book club. But either way, everybody have a happy 4th of July. Let's play the soft, sweet sounds while we're all on the screen of Done Messed Up for the SunDAVE sit down theme, because our illustrious guest wrote this song for me. It's short, it's sweet, and it's beautiful. Everybody have a safe, happy 4th of July. This is our Independence Day. Don't forget to watch Jaws and Independence Day.
Are you ready?
SunDAVE sit down.
Yeah, it's time for SunDAVE sit down.
SunDAVE sit down.
All right, I gotta end that.